has what it needs in front of it. So this you received from Beth? Okay. So we are looking at version 1.1 of S120. And as I recall in my conversations, just to bring everyone back, we asked in the University of Vermont agreed to convene a bit of a working group over town meeting week to take a look at this bill, see where we could find consensus. We're going to vote on this bill. It's going to be this week. Otherwise, I'm told it's not going to make it. So we need to make sure that we're all on board 100% with what leaves here. And then there might be some other disagreements or concerns on the House side. So do you have 1.1 in front of you, Ms. Robinson?
I do. And I am also looking at from Attorney St. James, the side-by-side as introduced.
Great. And senators will find that in their folders as well. And, to keep it simple, let's start with all of the areas where everybody is in agreement. So if you would take us through that, that would be helpful.
Sure, happy to do that. So for the record, Sarah Robinson, I'm the Deputy Director at the Vermont Network Against Domestic and Sexual Violence. Just want to thank the committee again for taking up this bill today and for your continued work on this bill before the crossover deadline. And I'm sorry that a scheduling conflict prevented me from being in the room with you all today. But as Senator Campion noted, in the intervening weeks since this committee last took up the bill, the Vermont Network met with post-secondary institutions to seek consensus around the bill language in S120, and those conversations were very productive and fruitful. And I just wanted to especially thank Wendy Koenig and Jennifer Papio at the University of Vermont for their partnership and good work on this legislative language. As well as my colleague Selena Colburn, who's in the room with you all today and can also answer questions. So I will just walk through what progress we were able to make, and then I'm happy to answer any questions. So as introduced, S120 had a section 1 that was related to a sexual misconduct campus climate survey. As you heard in previous testimony, there are other states that require campus climate surveys. We were not able to come to consensus language before the session began on section 1. And so by consensus, we have all agreed to remove section 1 from the bill as introduced. So that has been stricken. Then moving on to section 2 in the bill as introduced. That section related to every post-secondary institution having a confidential resource advocate on campus. We worked closely with our partners in the post-secondary institutions over the past several weeks. We exchanged many proposals related to this section. Ultimately, we were not able to come to consensus. So we have also agreed by consensus to remove section 2 from the bill.
Okay, so I just need you to stop for a second. So in 1.1, section 1 is removed.
No, I apologize. I was looking at the side-by-side that compares the bill as introduced to 1.1. But I can just talk about 1.1 if that's easiest.
No, this is terrific. Thank you.
Okay.
Keep going with the side-by-side. So you've struck sections
1 and 2.
Okay.
Yep.
Great.
And then in the next section is section 3. I'm just scrolling down to get there, which is related to memorandums of understanding between post-secondary schools and local sexual assault programs. And section 3 is now section 3 is now section 1 in 1.1. And this relates to institutions, post-secondary institutions having relationships with their local crisis organizations that provide confidential advocacy to victims of sexual harm on college campuses. We got very, very close on this language. Section 1 in 1.1 is really language that you'll see in kind of that side by side. The network has proposed new language for this section. We got very, very close on consensus, but we were not able to find consensus with the post-secondary institutions on that section. However, it is included in draft 1.1.
Okay, so just to clarify, and the only reason we're going to be a little bit of I'm going to be a little bit of pain is we only have 3 days.
Okay.
So what I'm looking at in 1.1, I thought it would be in this draft because there was agreement. You're saying there's not agreement on 1.1.
That is correct.
On section 1.
That is correct. And I will say that the section 1 in 1.1 is the language as introduced.
Okay.
If you look at the side by side, that is also on your committee website, on the right hand column on page 9 is section 3, which is now your section 1 of 1.1.
Okay.
That is the language that the network is proposing. And I would say we got very, very close with the post-secondary institutions on this language. Any questions on that?
Yeah. Well, we're waiting for Ledge Council, Senator Hashim.
Okay.
So, sorry if I missed this. I just want to understand is the non-consensus proposed language what was previously in the drafts and has been removed, or is
No.
what you are currently proposing, even though it's not, there's no consensus, or there's no consensus.
That's correct. So section 3 is the only place where we are proposing additional non-consensus language that you'll find in that side by side on page 9. That is language that was jointly developed largely by both the network and our partners at post-secondary institutions. So I think it represents much closer to consensus language than the bill as originally introduced. But there is one area that remains of disagreement.
Thank you.
In section 2 of 1.1, that is amnesty protections. That is consensus language. And again, just as a reminder, this requires post-secondary institutions to create and adopt an amnesty policy that prohibits disciplinary action against a student reporting or otherwise participating in a sexual misconduct policy for other disciplinary infractions. And this is language that has been passed by almost every, or similar language has been passed by almost every other state in New England and many, many other states across the country.
So that is consensus language.
Correct. Section 2, page
Yep.
3 of 1.1 is consensus language.
Great. Okay.
Yep.
So section
Go ahead.
section 3, is that consensus language?
Yes,
Okay, great.
that is consensus language.
Okay.
I will say that in, yes, that is consensus language, and as is section 5 and the remainder of the bill, section 4, section 5, section
Okay.
6, and section
So-
7.
So if we're working off 1.1, everything in this, on these 6 pages represent consensus language, save for section 1.
That is correct.
Okay. Please.
And I would,
Just one question. So the annual awareness programming and training, which was section 5, now section 3. There was a comment made a week or so, 2 weeks ago, about that this was duplicative of federal requirements already in place. So did the group feel that it was necessary to repeat federal?
that would be a great question for the post-secondary institutions to respond to. We do not believe it's duplicative.
Who wants to respond from the post-secondary institutions?
That particular section.
Yeah,
I
would you
think
rather wait and respond after?
Wendy Koenig, UVM, I think we can respond to it now. I think that we've come to consensus on this language. I think it's close enough to the federal requirement language that we all feel comfortable with it, and so we're not objecting to it.
I'd like to respond to that.
Please.
We're not gonna oppose it, but we feel it is duplicative, and we
Okay.
have Jeff Nolan here to talk about that. So when it's our turn, I'd like to turn it.
Nolan, can you, or Morgan, can you ask Beth for our PTA?
Yes.
We're getting down to the wire here. This is really helpful, so I think we'll work off of 1.1, and what I'm gonna ask Ledge Council to do is take us all through it, just so we all have a good understanding of what's here. Raise the differences, and then the committee will have to decide whether or not we move in one direction or another, or just send the consensus language to the House and have that worked on over there.
Thank you. And if I may, Chair, I just wanted to, for a brief moment, zoom out and just remind the committee, because I don't think we were able to discuss this right before the town meeting break, that this bill, while incredibly important, is not groundbreaking. And in fact, the bill as originally introduced was modeled after legislation that has already been passed in Maine, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, Connecticut, Illinois, Nevada, and Oregon. So I just want to really highlight that, this is, we're not breaking completely new ground here. Other states have required the same of post-secondary institutions. And that while we have been very pleased to participate in conversations with the post-secondary institutions over the past several weeks, we really urge the committee to also be considering the voices of those who those institutions exist to serve, which is students. And that while the institutional voices are very important, the voices of victim survivors are equally important in the process.
I appreciate that. We are going to hear from the students this week. Some have reached out to us. But just to be clear and direct, are you saying you would rather have us wait and take this whole issue up next year and not do anything this year?
No, I would very
No,
much like to move forward the consensus language, and I would strongly encourage the committee to also include section 1.
Okay, thank you. Morgan, what's the word?
Nothing back yet.
Okay. Why don't we do need Ledge Council to take us through this, so let's just take 5 minutes until Beth gets here, but let's stick around.